Hi, everyone. Good morning. As one of the early speakers, I want to honor those who've come before us in both physical and other elemental forms, those who continue to be with us today, and those who are coming, ancestors, peers, and guides. As someone coming from the north and for the first time to this magnificent island of Sri Lanka, I feel the urge to apologize for the violence and erasure that has been caused by the people coming from our region over years and acknowledge that it was never an Aryan land. And it also goes out to all other countries in South Asia where India, especially those in Delhi, try to speak for all of us. Super grateful to be here among you legends and want to thank Keng Sen to be able to see me and my work. I want to begin by illustrating briefly about the caste system. Within South Asia, across religion and the South Asian diaspora, it is Brahminical supremacy that controls us through the caste system. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, an academic, an anti-caste polymath, and a Dalit leader, calls this the social division of people of the same race. Here you see the chart of the caste hierarchy. On top are the Brahmins, who are the priests, the intellectual heads, and those closest to the divine. The caste system originates from 2 millennia-old Brahmanic text, the Manusmriti, and finds mention in the Rig Veda text from the Bronze Age. The second group is the Kshatriyas, or the warriors. They are rulers holding power and authority. At the third position are Vaishyas, who are businessmen and those involved in commerce. Men from these three categories are considered Dvija, twice born, acquired through a sacrament of initiation that is regarded as a second or spiritual birth. It is after which we have the Shudras, whose role is defined essentially to serve the three higher ranking caste categories. This group comes within the category of other backward castes in contemporary India. And after these are the ones outcasted, the Dalits, the category that is outside the system of the Varnas, who face unprecedented challenges of their life and dignity and are treated as untouchables. I come from the Mali caste, the fourth Varna. We are farmers. Our ancestors, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and Savitribai Phule, have led the anti-caste movement, focusing on education as a way to empower oneself and to live a life of dignity. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution, mentioned that when the Constitution would fail to serve my people, I will be the first one to burn it. In 2019, India experienced tormenting of the people by interventions to the constitution by the right-wing government elected for its second term in office. The BJP passed the Citizenship Amendment Act. It provided an accelerated pathway to Indian citizenship for persecuted religious minorities from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan who are Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, or Christians, and arrived in India before the end of December 2014. The law does not grant such eligibility to Muslims from these countries. They, in fact, ask the refugees to convert if they wanted to have rights within this nation. The protest against this started in the northeast of Delhi, northeast India, and then at liberal universities across the country. In protest were also 24/7 sit-ins led by Muslim women against the CAA across the country. Another bill passed in the parliament in 2019 was the Transgender Persons Protections of Rights Act. The act medicalized gender and sought evidence of surgery. It also set up heterostructural requirements of housing and family to obtain identity certification. This act goes against all prior judgments that were favorable to the movement towards gender rights. The transgender movement in India demands for horizontal reservation, cutting across all caste categories. Horizontal reservation would mean separate reservation within each category. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, and general category in education and employment. Grace Banu, engineer, technologist, and a Dalit and transgender rights activist from Tamil Nadu, argues horizontal reservation are already provided to women and people with disabilities across caste categories. Take, for instance, a Dalit trans woman. She is doubly oppressed, and therefore she would need reservation in both the categories. The lack of horizontal reservation is a denial of opportunities to trans persons, while putting all trans folks under one reservation category or other backward caste category is a denial of the caste positions of Dalit trans persons. In both these examples, we experience that the democratically elected government is not listening to the people whom it has been elected by. Liberalism suggests trying to change the government, while transformative justice and anarchism proposes self-organize. Establishing these socio-political contexts that one is responding from, I believe spaces that are exclusive to us and our community are essential. We seek a structure where we say, we have a say in what we need. The key is consent. We negotiate and arrive at something that is towards mutual respect and mutual pleasure of all of us at stake. The people who are marginalized by the hegemony, as people who are marginalized by the hegemony, we need to decenter the center and to center our own pleasure. The act of centering one's own desire and the collective desire of one's community is radical. And we then become radical figures and not what the hegemony calls us to outcast us or to hold power over us. Our joy is the counter to hegemony. I seek spaces and people that affirm me rather than those that call me not enough or too much. And such are the moments I'm interested in creating. Collective alignments are important when capitalism and patriotism are trying to isolate us from each other or assimilate us within categories they can understand and can systemically control. I would like to share an excerpt from my video, Nesting in Rapid Floods, Co-Alcoholics Anonymous 2, produced in 2022. They don't allow you to mourn, because if you did, you'd know what has been really lost. What would you really stand up against? The many chances, it's your time now. What are the words? What are the stories? What is it that you will find power with? Are these relations where we avoid engaging after we have tried several times and failed? Is it just moments when we freeze and trying to find what is safe? They act so fast and repeatedly that they don't allow you to mourn, because if you did, you'd know what has been really lost. One should remember that the state is not the only oppressor, and that's why socialism is not enough. I feel the counter to what we look at as aggressive masculinity is masculinity that stands up against violence. We need more soft spaces, permeable architectures, places that are designed for and by the people whom it's for. I believe that we need to have disabled and neurodivergent people design the world. When I say disability, I do not mean only a physical and mental disability. I also mean a social disability, a systemically produced disability by hegemony that invalidates people. As a response to the lack of agency one found within the cultural sector, and also the lack of opportunity to people from my different communities at my caste and gender intersection, and to be able to listen, read, and spend time with people from my communities, I founded Party Office. I think it was very evident in 2019 that things have to completely change. People who are scared for their lives and well-being need a place that is empathetic. We need a political imagination. Party Office opened in 2020. Party Office is an anti-caste, anti-racist, trans-feminist art and social space, and time initiated in New Delhi, and also manifested satellite locations as conceptual architecture. Through publications, grants, radical archives, conversation of life lived, social gatherings, parties, and more, we are building transnational dialogues on empathetic futures, care communities, and radical agency. In 2022, we released 4 publications along with one, showcased one in progress. They were all shown at Documenta 15 last year. We have a series of publications called Consent of the Governed, a conversation between Constitution and kink, where kink is proposed as the anarchist methodology to counter the state, as consent and negotiation towards mutual pleasure is one of the foundations in BDSM. We also released the publication Soil to Soil, which has recipes for a meal focusing on millets, and those which are ethically source the ingredients and also put them back into the earth through different methods. So these were all the ingredients that were used. These are how they were sourced, and we also have composting methods within the recipe book. So it talks about how everything goes back to the soil. The other 2 are from our annual archiving fellowship. First is titled Towards the Dalit Structure of Archiving. It's from the members of Samta Kala Manch, Ambedkarite cultural troupe based in Maharashtra. And the second is of anti-caste alphabets, which is illustrated by Sunil Abhiman Avachar in collaboration with Panther Paw Publications. Okay. At our installation in 2022 at Documenta 15 in Castle, that I curated with my collaborator, writer, and curator, Shaunak Mehbubani, we wanted to center BIPOC and trans people. We created a space which had a reading room, a club, a performance space, a performance space, a dungeon, a video space. There was also a chill out area during parties. We wanted to make sure for the rest from the exhaustion that comes from constantly having to prove our humanity or defend our identities. In a society that values isolation and self-abandonment over self and collective care, it can be a radical act to prioritize one's own needs and well-being. For those who have historically been oppressed and marginalized, to set boundaries, say no, and prioritize self-love is a form of resistance and liberation. We hosted club nights and followed a code of conduct, which everyone who entered the space during the parties had to read and consent to. This is a party created by and for trans, BIPOC, and neurodivergent people, centering our safety and joy. Our awareness team is here to help you and avoid unsafe situations. They can be identified with their reflective handbands. Enthusiastic, continuous consent is a key to mutual pleasure. Please respect other people's boundaries. Don't approach the DJ booth. A single warning shall be the only chance for you to check yourself. Please utilize resources available for safe use and information on access. Approach or indicate to the awareness team that it's time to intervene. The awareness team reserves the right to implement policy regarding this security. This is non-negotiable. No tolerance nor labor shall be expended towards disrespect and deliberate harm to others in gatherings such as racism, transphobia, sexism, ableism, classism, casteism, and any other form of violence. If you cannot respect our mandate, we recommend you choose not to enter the space. Remember to take care of yourself, look out for your friends, keep hydrated, and be generous with aftercare. For me, the meaning is in being able to identify where we stand and what kind of power we hold. Marginality is a continuum. It's relational. We need to have and articulate our boundaries in respect to others and also have boundaries with ourselves and act within them. Our integrity is our power. I believe there is an erasure of spirituality, of selflessness, and grief. I think our way forward needs us to believe in something beyond our physicality. And have faith as a part of our individuality, as faith is what keeps you living. We need more spaces, time, and processes for grieving. Only once we have identified and accepted our grief and pain, it is then we can transmute it. We heal, empower ourselves, and act through this transmutation. To some, the future may sound fictional, but fiction is where we can rehearse our freedom. Fiction can give us hope when the world seems to fall apart. I believe that we need to have hope. This hope is what can hold us as we mourn the loss. I hope we will all remember and unapologetically tell about the genocide and ethnic cleansing we are witnessing. For freedom of all political prisoners, a free Kashmir, Manipur, Congo, Sudan, and many more. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to speak. I'm a filmmaker. I started making films when I was 17 and when I was in school. I come from a small town down south from Colombo, 20 miles away. And I started making films when I was 17. And exactly a year later, 1983, riots began. And my first experience is I was in school, and the Hindu temple in front of my school started burning. And in our town, the main street of our town, I come from Panadura, and all the shops owned by the Tamil community, overnight it became a heap of ashes and charcoal. So this whole experience, in a way, had an impact on my life and in my choice of profession as a filmmaker, because at 17, I was dreaming of becoming a fiction filmmaker, making short films and thinking of doing my first feature film. And I had 2-3 draft scripts with me. But what happened is, I think my approach to filmmaking changed overnight. In a way, from 1983, when I started going out, making films, taking photographs, I was going in search of people that I have known from my own town who were overnight drawn away from my own town. So in a way, it was a search in search of people whom I have known. I have gone into different localities, different locations coming from south to the east to the north. And in that journey, 20 years later, I made a film in the Vanni. Some of you may know Vanni, but some of you may not. Vanni is in the middle of, between the south and the north, sits Vanni area, where that most of the displaced people ended up from the south due to the war. And then my journey and my documentation, 20 years after 83, that was in 2003, ended up in a film called The Other Woman. So today, talking of memory and memorialization, I would like to share a clip of that film, which I shot.
Each year in October, the monsoon rains come to the Vanni. The torrential downpour floods the fields and makes the roads impassable. The skies are overcast. Amidst the grey, in late November, red and yellow flags begin to bloom throughout the Vanni. During this season, the Vanni is waterlogged and many paths become inaccessible. From all over the north and east, people gather in the Vanni in order to commemorate the martyrs. This is the LTT's Heroes' Day. In the evening, the LTT leader Velupille Prabhakaran delivers his Heroes' Day message. At 6 p.m. exactly, a bell begins to toll. Family members of the dead come forward to light lamps in memory of their loved ones. Throughout the north and east, similar ceremonies are carried out at various cemeteries where the LTT's war heroes are interred. All over the north and east, this night is set aside to light lamps that will burn through the night at the temporary memorial shrines erected at every junction on the main roads.
Memorialization is about to preserve the memory of and to commemorate. But what happened? We ended the war in 2009, and do we all have the right to commemorate and to look for the memory? That is one question which is coming from Sri Lanka. For example, if we talk about memory, one of the things I want to discuss is right to memory and denial. As a filmmaker, I have worked on memory, keeping the memory, documenting the memories, and facing denials. I would like to share another clip of the same film, which I was denied to record the memories. This is on the same Martyrs' Day, that the clip you saw from the same film. I was asked to come to this function at a particular time, closer to 6 p.m., because all the commemorations were happening at a particular time. But I entered the place you saw through a back fence around 11 o'clock in the morning because we were not allowed to enter the premises because it was family time. Family time where that the mothers, the wives, the sisters, the family members come and let out their sorrows. That is not to be recorded. It was a denial. So I entered the same graveyard through the back fence, and I documented this.
Heroes who laid down their lives for the sake of their beliefs lie interred beneath the sand. Among them are many women. Society hails their sacrifice and honors them as martyrs. Yet for the mothers and sisters left behind, the loss is still the loss of a beloved daughter or sister, a brother or a son. The sense of bereavement, the grief does not change with the achievement of martyrdom. Malati was the first woman combatant of the LTTE to die on the battlefield in 1987, fighting against the Indian peacekeeping forces. She is a symbol of the female martyr. Yet for her family, the grief of losing a daughter, a sister, is as fresh today as it was so many years ago.
The gatekeepers of the graveyard, the cemetery, kicked me out because I was documenting what I should not be documenting. It was the tears, the sorrows were not supposed to be documenting because it is against the projected image of martyrhood. But I had this, and I captured only few images. But now, all these graveyards, there were more than 10, I think 11. After the ending of the war in 2009 in Sri Lanka, that all this memory has been erased. So there is no place for the mothers, the sisters who are grieving here to visit back and recall memory. So when it comes to memory and memorialization, always there are denials. And we are talking about memory of armed conflict and war between two groups. But there were, in Sri Lanka, there's more than one conflict. Before 2009, during the period between 83 and 2009, there were many incidents of tensions between other ethnic groups in Sri Lanka. Especially, there was a time all the Muslim community in the north was sent away by the LTT controlling the north back. So basically, most of the Muslims ended up in Puttalam district in Sri Lanka, in northwestern province. And as you may know, like sometimes as a community, they don't go for a lot of memorials, building up memorials. So how do they kept their memory is one of the other things I documented. I have come across few places in the area that they settled back, where that they rename the places they live in, because they took their memory from places they lived in and brought back into the places they resettled after displacement. So there were villages in the Puttalam district in Sri Lanka. For example, the place known as Nagavillu, earlier, the displaced people who were displaced from Erukkulam Piti, they renamed their place of living, temporary place of living after that name, and there was a conflict. So sometimes now that in Sri Lanka, then when you come across a town like that, for example, there was a place called Pilladiya, and known as Pilladi, and people who were displaced from Tarapuram renamed that place as Tarapuram. So now that we come across these places with a hyphen in the middle, the original name and the renaming. So this is how people keep their memories. This is the memory of their original place when you are living in this place. So there's memory, talking of memory, that we have lot of examples from Sri Lanka, cutting across a lot of communities. And the other thing is, in 2018, that we had the most known Easter Sunday bombing. 3 churches in Sri Lanka were bombed on the Easter Sunday during the Mass. And keeping that memory of the loved ones they lost in these communities was important. But again, what happened was the denial, and the denial of the entry to the communities to document, to keep the memory going. I have started documenting the Easter Sunday victims, and I have a clip from one of the places known as Katuwapitiya, one of the churches which was bombed. And there's a cemetery. There's, for the community to keep their memory of the loved ones, there's a graveyard. So we see the graveyard. The family members can individually go and let out their grievances. But media is not allowed. There's always gatekeeping. In this particular place, the entry point is guarded by different armed forces, intelligence, as well as the church. So none of the filmmakers or the media people were allowed to go and look into more details of the community grievances. And for documenting this, actually I took a mobile phone and I went in, but yet I was taken in. Me and my team, we were in custody. And later on, I was thinking, why and how? Then I found out there are ways of keeping the memory going on. And then I started documenting other people who were documenting the same process. And I have a clip to share with you where the memory of the Easter Sunday victims was carried by an actor, a performer, doing a performance walking from one of the churches, the Katuwapitiya, the clip that you saw, from that church to another church in Colombo, walking 40 miles, 40 kilometers actually, doing a performance and keeping that memory going and commemorating the victims. This is by an actor called Jehan Srikanta Apuhami, who has taken part in many passion plays in the past, as he has played the role of the Jesus in many passion plays. And he came out with this performance by carrying a cross, heavy cross, from one of the places to the other. This is his way of keeping the memory going. So people who were seeking justice for the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks, they were looking, they were asking for justice. And this cross became the symbol of that justice, and it is called the Cross of Justice. My documentation continues. As a filmmaker, even though in 1982, I started as a filmmaker who wanted to make fiction films. Right now, for the last almost 40 years, my role has been to keep on documenting the memory of people in this country, not of one community. I come from a Sinhala Buddhist background in the South, but I keep documenting the lives of Tamils and Muslims and others in the country, everybody's memories. Because right now, if you look at the Sri Lankan situation, we have many memorials from the colonial past, from Colombo to everywhere. We have many memorials. But whose memory and who is allowed to memorialize and who is denied that is the question in Sri Lanka. So in a way, memory is multi-layered, it's multiple narratives. So my thought is what we need here is a national policy for memorialization. Thank you.
Hi, well, first bat after tea, I'll try and survive that. In my profession, I come across people who are persecuted. They have their backs against the wall, they want respite, and they're tired of the repression they constantly face. Sometimes they throw out their arms and go, what's the use? They want to give up the fight. I've been there and I know where they're coming from. And while I appreciate their situation, I remind them of the consequences. That by giving up, they not only cease to resist, but also become cogs in the wheel of the oppressor. The oppressor no longer needs to use their tools of coercion. They can behave normally, and the repressed follow the rules without leaving a trace. That's why I'm here today, to remind you that what you do matters. To remind you of the cost of being complicit in an unjust system. The cost of knowing one failed to stand on the right side of history. If you believe in a just society, then the courage to speak truth to those in positions of power is not just a virtue, not merely a moral imperative. It is the lifeblood of a thriving and just society. Should speaking truth to power then not be more commonplace? We celebrate truth warriors, but we do so precisely because they're rare. Why so? If you're fighting a battle, you need soldiers. And one of the things I started to do, because I needed warriors, was to set up a school. It's called Pathshala. It's said to be one of the finest schools in the world. Some of the great photographers of the world joined me. They slept on my floor. We shared the food we had. They taught hungry students. Dominique's there somewhere at the back, one of them, one of many. The school is now known for what it is. This is work by two of the former students, Asad, who was the first Bangladeshi to be on the cover of National Geographic. This recent Time magazine cover is by Sarkar Pratik. Oh, they're not happening. Sorry. I have to do this. My apologies. Thank you for pointing it out. Let me go back to the image that I should have shown. So that's what I was talking about, but this image relates to the people in power. That was Khaleda Zia after she got elected. I've got a diptych, a picture of her before she gets elected, one after she gets elected, and the transformation is quite dramatic. Thank you for pointing it out. This is Assad on the left with his National Geographic cover, Pratik on the right with his very recent Time magazine cover. It's ironic because I did the first Time magazine cover of Khaleda Zia when she was Prime Minister, and my student Pratik now does Sheikh Hasina when she's in power. The next picture is by Taslim Akhtar. Her image of the Rana Plaza disaster was Time magazine's picture of the year. So they've done well. These warriors have been delivering. But I was very conscious also of what I'd set out to do. I'd started challenging the Western gaze, and I set up an agency called Dhrik as a platform for local storytellers. But I also recognized my own position as a male middle-class photographer, and I recognized that I was part of the problem, that my own power within that structure needed to be challenged. So we set up a collective of women photographers called Unno Chokhe Dakha, seeing with another eye, and whoops, isn't that there? That picture isn't coming up. Which one? Yes. Ah, okay. Thank you. So this was the group Unno Chokhe Dakha, and they did a show at Shilpakala Academy. But I also, while I recognized the gender perspective, I also recognized that there was a class issue. So I started teaching working class children. And Molly, on the right, became my assistant. She now is a senior editor at Channel I, the top private television channel. A couple of the kids are my colleagues at Dhrik. They've all done well. They're very effective in the media, and we have, for the first time, working class people in media. But let me move to something else. About 60% of the members of parliament in Bangladesh are involved in the garment industry. Most are garment owners. With that sort of clout, the Garment Owners Association were able to build their headquarters by building it in the middle of a waterway, which is a protected waterway. So they filled it with land, they built this building. One prime minister inaugurated the beginning of the construction. Another prime minister inaugurated the building itself. No one questioned the fact that the building never had planning permission. So a 15-story building goes up without anyone having given permission for it to do so. Now, this was a problem. We were trying to challenge it, and the way we did it was through our art. This is how the government responded to our art. Now, I mean, there are people who will say my government doesn't really take art seriously. How many of you have had this sort of a response to your exhibition. You know, our government takes art very seriously. So we did a whole series of things. We did performances, we did a show, we used billboards. The garment industry uses fashion, so we took the motive of the billboard for that. And we felt that perhaps we could do something. But what was interesting was this. Let me show you this. This is what happened to that building. That 15-storied building, built by the most powerful body of business people and politicians together, and here we were, ordinary citizens, but we were able to take it down. It can happen. It can happen even in repressive spaces, provided you collectively get your strength together, you get your act together. Currently, the most powerful nation in the world is the United States of America. They have by far the largest military, the largest economy, and the most powerful media. They invade countries at will, completely disregarding world opinion. They espouse democracy, but cozy up to murderous dictators. They champion human rights defenders and whistleblowers worldwide, but viciously persecute those who blow whistle on them. They wax lyrical about peace, but actively promote war. What is surprising is how the rest of us puts up with them. It is our inaction against them that is perhaps the problem. The absurdity of making the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world members of the Security Council and thereby being entrusted with world peace is pretty plain to see. You wouldn't hand over your child to a pedophile for safekeeping, but we hand over world peace to the biggest arms manufacturers. Powerful nations become settler colonizers, Israel being a modern-day example. The media hegemony makes it difficult for the truth to surface. But with internet and social media, mainstream media cannot put the lid on the story entirely. We do know ignorance is not the problem. It is indifference. How is it that we as a community knowingly allow this to happen? How can this happen on our watch? So let me go a little bit further. Art institutions are powerful. Communities are often led to believe they're powerless, where the powerful have a disproportionate sense of entitlement. It is precisely the strong sense of entitlement that powerful people, leaders, and states have that require us to be speaking truth to power. Entities with power generally have a combination of money, muscle, and influence. And one of the first things they do is to control the narrative. They hire people like you and me. Right now, here in this hall, I'm powerful because I have the podium and I have the mic. The reason I'm here, however, is because the organizers chose me. Because of what I represent, or because they think I will further their agenda. They exert their power through me to influence you. That is how it works. So this is my Facebook profile. It's been there for years. I mean, I began to put on the kafir after the many times that Israel attacked Gaza, and the Free Palestine flag is on our building. I was approached by a museum in Germany to curate their Biennale. And once they asked me to do that, I invited two of my former students, Monem Wasif and Tanzim Wahab, to join me. And we submitted a proposal together. After 7th of October, and Israel's subsequent disproportionate attack on Gaza, I did my utmost to try and bring about a ceasefire. These are my former students, Munim Wasif Tanzim Wahab. We would have been the first non-European curators to have curated the Biennale for Actual. It takes place in 3 cities, Mannheim, Heidelberg, and Ludwigshafen, 18 venues across 3 cities, major event in Europe. They have brought in the first non-European curators. The problem is, the reason they invited us was precisely the reason why they found us unpalatable. Yeah? It's fine to bring in non-European curators, but then if you bring in your own ideas, that becomes a problem. So once my posts started going up, I mean, I'd been posting that before, I get a panic phone call, what's going on here? I actually send them my official statement, our official statement, which talks about the fact that we oppose the killing of civilians, whoever it might be, but that wasn't good enough. So then they tried to stop me posting, I wasn't having that. Then they did the old colonial thing of dividing and rule. So they approached us to say, well, perhaps Shahidul could be dropped out and Wasif and Tanzim could curate the exhibition. Well, they didn't get along with that. So then they canceled the Biennale. So that entire Biennale is gone. We worked for nearly 2 years with a whole series of artists, galleries, whatever, designing the show, collecting stuff, getting permission from museums, but that Biennale is off. Interestingly enough, when that decision was made, before that was made, we wrote to them to say, look, if this is happening, we need to inform the artists. They need to know we're in this debate. No, just give us a minute, 24 hours, and we will let you know. Within those 24 hours, they got together, they brought out a press release without telling us, without telling the artist, without telling the institutions, and it was out there in the public domain that this Biennale had gone because I'm anti-Semitic. Now, of course, it didn't stop there. This is from Al Jazeera. Then, day before yesterday, the British Journal of Photography came out with a statement. The Wire came out with a statement. It was all going on. And in my statement, I'd said this, that anti-Zionism is what it's about. I was not anti-Semitic. I was anti-Zionist. Interestingly enough, the following day, in the US Congress, and this makes me realize I'm pretty powerful, I suppose, if I take credit for it, the US Congress came up with a ruling that equated anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. So that is the official version today. Yeah? So you get to realize where we're heading. So now this is the UN Resolution 3103. And of course, the statement that comes up is Israel has the absolute right to defend itself. It's parroted by settler colonizers, Australia, France, Germany, Netherlands, UK, USA. None of them seem to remember that by the international laws that they themselves espouse, it is the Palestinians who have the absolute right to defend themselves, and Israel, as an occupying force, does not have a similar entitlement. But Israel's partners in crime have allowed one of the most brutal attacks on unarmed civilians in recent times to proceed with impunity. People are dying as we speak. The worst among them being Germany, as you've seen. And in Germany today, you can be arrested for demanding ceasefire. That is the world we're living in. It's happening on our watch. So what we do, one of the things we do is try and find other means. I mean, we're meant to be creative people. Not everyone is a fighter. There are those who want to participate but are scared, who justifiably worry about the consequences, for whom the risks are too great. One needs to create ways for them too, and what we've done is produce a series of merchandise called Cintar Korak, food for thought. And within that, we make mugs, tote bags, notebooks, bookmarks, T-shirts, and other things one might casually buy they all have a message. Some are more defiant, some are only mildly provocative, but each one makes you think. While someone might be hesitant to join a protest march or sign a statement or give an interview, they might be okay drinking coffee from a mug. That makes a statement. Or carrying a tote bag, which raises important questions. And these small steps build confidence, form a wider community, provide a sense of belonging. They give us a moral compass. And I want to remind you of how it's been in other places. When people thought apartheid in South Africa was wrong, people all over the world rallied around against apartheid, and apartheid fell. When you Sri Lankans rallied against your government and your president fled and you swam in the swimming pool, we were all excited. Apartheid in Israel will fall. Tyranny in my country, Bangladesh, will fall. But it will not fall by itself. We, the citizens, need to stand tall and exercise our rights. We need to be talking truth to power. And we have concrete ideas, and I will share it with you, those who are interested. One of the things we are trying to do now is to do a major exhibit. Maybe Prince Claus Fund will be interested. We'd like to do a major exhibit of all the shows that have been cancelled. Iowa Way, Adanya Shibli, our work. Let's get it all together, put it up there in one big show. This can be our statement, and we can make it happen. And I want to leave you with that idea, but I am also doing something very specific. We are putting together a letter to the Goethe Institute across the globe. We want to ask them whether their position is aligned with that of their government. And if so, we will decide what we will do. If not, then they need to demonstrate what they can do. So I leave you with that because I think you do matter. We matter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Radhika Heterachi, and I'm a public historian. Keng, you put me after Shahidul Alam. How am I gonna do anything now? Okay, so here goes. Thanks for having me here.
සමාජයෙන් ලැබුණු අත්දැකීම් අනුව මම කියන්නේ මේ රැකියාවට තැනක් තියෙන්න ඕන. කවුරුත් අගය කරන්න ඕන. දැන් මේකත් රැකියාවක්. මම කියන්නේ එහෙම මේ රැකියාව කරන්න අවස්ථාව දෙනවා නම් අර හිතේ තියෙන බය නැතුව සතුටින් ඒ රැකියාව හරි කරන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් අපේ වයස ගෙවිලානේ භාගයක්ම. ඒතර අර තරුණ ළමයි හරි ඒකට ඉන්නවා නම් ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන් මෙහෙම දෙනවා නම්. ඉඩක් දෙන්න ඕන. මොකද ඉඩ නොදුන්නත් මේක කෙරෙනවනේ. එහෙමනම් ඉඩක් දෙන්න ඕන. ඉඩක් දීලා එයාලටත් යම්කිසි මේ ගරුත්වයක් තියෙන්න ඕන. මේක හැංගිලා කරන දෙයක් නෙමෙයිනේ. මේක හැමම කරන වැඩක්නේ. ඒක කසාද බැඳපු යුවල කරන්නෙත් ඒ ටික. මෙහෙම යන අය අපි කරන්නෙත් ඒ ටික. එහෙමනම් ඒක හැංගිලා බය කරන්න ඕන එකක් නෙමෙයි. එහෙම ඉතින් නම් දන්නේ මේවා මෙහෙම වෙනවද නැද්ද කියන්න. මම හිතන්නේ මෙහෙම දුන්නොත් කමක් නැහැ කියන එක.
What you heard is a story of a sex worker from Jaffna. She's of mixed parentage. She speaks both Sinhala and Tamil, both local languages. Sex work in Sri Lanka exists in the shadows, and it's in a legally ambiguous space because the law is applied in a way that is criminalized. So when we consider sexual violence on sex workers, especially during the war, it's even more hidden away from witness. Earlier in this video, she talks about her life, and she talks about the fact that as a sex worker, she doesn't consider herself a bad woman. In this little bit of the snippet that you heard, she speaks her mind about what she believes. And that is that decriminalizing sex work will make the work safer and more dignified for her and for women like her. So for a woman sex worker who has suffered multiple layers of structural violence, especially conflict-related sexual violence during the war, to be able to speak about her experiences, but also her opinions, is power. The reason I wanted to show you that snippet is this recent work on women's histories of conflict that I'm involved in, that it carries forward the work of the Her Stories project that was funded 11 years ago by the Prince Claus Fund together with the Commonwealth Foundation. And I've been working on documenting sensitive histories, over 750 narratives, over 4 archival projects that highlight women's experiences of conflict, but also women's experiences of courage and survival. And using these archives, I worked with different partners through these narratives to take this work as a traveling exhibition to communities and to have dialogue with those communities and across those communities to build empathy and understanding across our divided community. So thank you, Prince Claus Fund, for starting us on developing this kind of rich public history archive and all of the associated work in the last 10 years. You gave us a start. So now to talk about what I've been asked to talk about here today, which is the power of owning our narratives. And in all of this work, there are 3 things that I learned that I believe to be true, and I'd like to share them with you. So the first thing is that historicizing always intersects with power. Someone else, whether it's the state or the media apparatus or historians or politicians, determines what, who, how history is made and remembered. When memory is monumentalized and our experiences are crystallized as history by someone else, for example in textbooks, it becomes a litany of events and a contiguous record of incidents. The people exist only through someone else's objective gaze. One of the dangers of this kind of single narrative is the power of first interpretation. That means the version of history presented to us as truth ends up sinking in, and it can be difficult to convince people of other truths that exist. It can become a distraction and an erasure of other violent pasts. And the danger then is that over time, it becomes truth for many people. And truth is many things. It can be an incident, it can be what one witnessed, but it is also emotional truths. So how we feel about something that happened, that doesn't exist in something like this. So history, in a sense, should also be perspective. In the clip we heard earlier, it isn't just about what happened to her that she speaks about, or the worst experiences of her life. She gives a nuanced glimpse of the socioeconomic, political, and conflict landscape of her past, but she also talks about how that affected her life. And in advocating for the changes that she wants, she's connecting the past to her present. And the possibility of narrative is this, that historicizing becomes not just about the past, it can become about the future, and that is power. And here's where I believe that revisionism or revision isn't all that bad. Some, particularly the state, can do it in a way that is insidious, of course, and there is much to problematize in that. But thinking back to the end of the Sri Lankan Civil War in 2009, and the way the dominant narratives after war were built up, dominant narratives of victory, military machismo with a very strong undercurrent of majoritarian nationalism, it reminds us again that if unchallenged over time, this is all future generations will know. So revising and challenging such narratives in a way that highlights for us the particular challenges of women is to feminize those narratives. And in revision, there is power. But this power to revise history, particularly to feminize narratives, provides us also with an important lesson, and that is that with the responsibility to remember also comes the right to forget. Especially after conflict, historicizing and monumentalizing happens. Rarely is such memorialization by those who experienced and lived it. And when asked to look back on their memories, the way we remember has a lot to do with where we are today. It has a lot to do with the context of the present and how we cope with our present and what we think the repercussions will be for us in the future. This, what you see, is a book that we did from all of these different projects called We Are Present, Capturing Women's Histories of Conflict. And what you see here is a story of a woman who, it was a very powerful story actually, it was a story of sexual violence, and she took on the court system. But when we went back 10 years later to ask her if it was okay to publish her story in this book, she rejected that option. She said, and this is really important because that means memories are subject to the context of today. And it's a constant negotiation for women to remain authentic to that moment, but also of self-preservation. So she said she wanted the story out of the archive because she's married now, she lives in a different town, she's got children, and she wants to forget her past. So she wanted us to remove it from the archive, which we did, so it's no longer in the archive. But I wanted to leave it like this, redacted, so that we can have this conversation about memory and forgetting and how important it is to allow that space for both. And she judged for herself today whether her memories or remembering her story made sense today. And that is also power of narrative, to be able to erase that. So this is where the power of first interpretation is challenged, is truly challenged, because it's no longer static. And unlike history written for us by others, we can withdraw our stories, we can withdraw our memories, and this ability to revise and withdraw our narratives, if we so choose, is power. So this connects us to my third and final point, which is that when narratives are controlled by those who lived it, they become co-creators of history. And we challenge simply being represented in summary or in distilled versions of history, which is a passive act. We co-create, and in this, we actively participate in history making, but also how and when it is remembered and why it is remembered. The primary voice is heard, which is our voice. Because stories matter and because storytelling matters, co-creation allows for multiple histories and perspectives. And in that way, we democratize truth. And that is the power of narrative. So in all of this, what is clear is that there is complexity to memory, history, and its uses in the public sphere. These archives of oral histories as collections that we do, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well, they become memorials in themselves. Unlike monumentalized memory, these memorials are made up of dissenting voices and many truths. It enables us, the public, to revisit these narratives over and over, and history and memory intertwined become something living, something present. And in those instances, new truths can emerge, new emotions can be elicited every time. This happens so much so when we write our own histories or we create our own histories because it's not written by someone else. So as practitioners, this calls us to action, to adopt a philosophy of multiple narratives in our work, to adopt a praxis that allows for space for those who lived history to co-create it. And when I say it, I mean art, I mean architecture, I mean memorials. And in this way, they can revisit their choice to participate and withdraw their narratives at any time. And in doing so, the power of narrative is ours. Thank you.
Right off, I'm very happy that there is now a direct flight between Kathmandu and Colombo, from the Himalaya to the sea. So I bring you greetings from the plains, mid-hills, and the mountains of Nepal. I'm happy with the title given for this show, for this presentation rather, Contemporary Urgencies. There's nothing more urgent than the situation that confronts culturally, socially, intellectually, politically, the people of South Asia, represented here by not the upside map of South Asia, but the right side up map of South Asia, created by the editors of Himal magazine, asking us to take a new look at our region as it might have been historically, but not as defined by the boundaries that the British left behind. Also, not as we perceive how the West want us to look at ourselves. That we need to revise what we've been taught. And in that comes in the topic that I have been given, contemporary urgencies. The worldview that I have been developing about the urgencies of South Asia goes far beyond the poverty, the social distress. It is actually also right down to the village level, a crisis of culture because of homogenization, globalization. That hits South Asia more than others because South Asia, right from the tip, the southernmost tip, right at the top of page, the village of Matara, right to the south of page, to the northernmost tip of Kashmir. South Asia is made up of extreme variation, variegated culture more than anywhere else in the world. But also those variations, those micro communities are vast. They number in the millions. So many micro communities, but being dulled by a oneness as we speak. Dullness of the malls, the highways, the airport lounges, and the Bollywood wedding. Any corner that you go to, you'll find a oneness overtaking a land that is more laden with variety than anywhere else, till this late in history. Yet, we're going down under. Let's take a look at South Asia. For a sense of perspective, let's look at the numbers. We're talking about 2 billion people, a fourth, 25% of the world's population. So when we speak of distress, we must multiply 2 billion by 1. Individual lives in distress. And within that, and I will focus mostly on India and Pakistan in my presentation, because the two countries together by population, and for me, population is everything. Australia is not a large country, neither is Greenland. In that sense, Pakistan is massive, India is huge. 86% of South Asia come under India and Pakistan. But these countries, two countries, don't talk to each other. And therein lies the crisis of culture, which then also emanates the rest of South Asia. Take the case of the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. It is a moribund organization. It is called SAARC. It is made to bring us together, but the India-Pakistan, Pakistan-India animosities keep the rest of us apart, including Sri Lanka and Nepal. Culture lives through exchange. I will not for now go into the microcultures, if that is the term to use, because as I said, there is a oneness pervading everywhere, from Guwahati to Multan. But if culture also means cross-border culture, then you need connections, you need communities, you need exchange, you need visa-less travel. But South Asia is becoming more rock hard in its nationalisms than any time in the past. If you thought that over time there would be softer borders, that there would be the concertina wires and guard dogs at the border, if you thought that that would end by the year 2023, if you thought this in 1990, it's actually become much more harsh. If you fly over from the west, fly over Lahore at 39,000 feet, and you look down at night, you see a beautiful necklace heading southward towards the Thar Desert. But that beautiful necklace is the India-Pakistan border. It is the proof of the separation of people and separation of cultures. A horrific sight. It is horrific on the ground because there is concertina wires, guard dogs, halogen lamps, guards on both sides, the Pakistani Rangers and the Border Security Force of India, BSF. Yet from the top, it should look pretty, but that is not a pretty sight. You can see it, I gather, from the satellite as well. There is exclusionary nationalism. Well, our cultures are kept apart because our borders are sharp. Our borders are sharp because the nation state that we have inherited, which is probably not the best way we should have gone about things in South Asia because of the overwhelming nature of interconnected cultures, because South Asia is a penumbra. It should not be a country of a region of sharp boundaries. From Balochistan to the Arakan, there would be no boundary, but there would be penumbra differentials throughout. So Arakanis may not recognize the Baloch, but they are connected through the penumbras in the plural across the land. Except we've got now sharp boundaries, and what we have from there is nationalism. Then we get ultranationalism, and then we get faith-based, i.e. religious nationalism. And once you enter the portal of religious nationalism, you can say goodbye to any kind of soft border, because then the masses are fed the opioid of religion and the populism, the dangerous populism. We talked about truth to power. Truth to populist power should also be a term that we should use, because nobody dares fight that. No politician dares fight that. No scholar dares fight that. And in the India-Pakistan realm, that is what is happening. These two countries should have a soft border, like Nepal has an open border with India. It's not even soft. And Nepal survives as a small country, relatively small country. But India and Pakistan, I would like to show you an artifact, a video from 2 months ago. Myself, as a citizen of Nepal, have the privilege, unlike most other South Asians. Sri Lankans also have that privilege, I should tell you. But you are further away in the south. But if you are in the northern part of South Asia, you, Sri Lankans, and we, Nepalese, have the privilege to go to the Wagah border, go to Amritsar, go to the border, get yourself an online Pakistani visa, and cross over into Pakistan. A Pakistani the other way cannot do that. An Indian from this side cannot do that. But look at that border, talking about the separations. Every afternoon, there is something known as the beating the retreat. It is a highly supercharged, high testosterone event where the Pakistani soldiers and the Indian soldiers have, they goose step around and they look at each other with mock animosity, which in reality is not very mock. And then they bring down the flags and they close the gates, and cheering crowds on both sides. Well, that is the show that they put on. Where you come to the point where the immigration, which is where I went through, it is built like airline lounges, airline immigration, airport immigration, etc. It's as calm as a cemetery. There is nobody going back and forth. It should be the India-Pakistan border with India with a population of 1.4 billion and Pakistan with a population of 241 million. That should be a place of bizarre cacophony, hubbub, total, there should be some kind of masala dosa being made here, pakoras being made here, the rowdiness of a railway station. That is how the India-Pakistan border should be, except it is silent. The immigration people actually have all the time in the world to do chit-chat with you. They ask you, well, are you really from Nepal? And the Pakistani guard, immigration officer asked me, is Nepal really an independent country? This is how beautiful it is. Soft and sweet as South Asia should be. Take a look at when I crossed over 2 months ago. This is the border security force, the Indian side. That's for the show and the amphitheater, the Colosseum. The other side is Pakistan, border security force. They actually don't even know where to find my visa. And they found it. That's a 400-foot flagstaff. Got it. And that's a tout on the other side waiting for me. I say, no, thank you. That is the Pakistani ranger looking back to India. Border security force. Pakistan. And the next one, please, slide. So this is my passport from 22 September that I am privileged to have, but my Indian friends and my Pakistani friends are not. Others should get the same privilege that I did, is my presentation. Let's go back to the map. So, do I see emerging solidarities, which is one of the themes, the key theme of this gathering here, and the title given by Keng Sen? Sadly, I do not. There are no emerging solidarities, mostly between India and Pakistan, and also in many ways between the almost equally nationalist-minded nation-states of South Asia, including my own. Can art and culture address urgent societal challenges? They should, but we seem to be, perhaps one way to express it would be to say we're missing the elephant in the room and going after little mice in the corner. Somewhere, the area of the arts, meaning artists, literateurs, novelists, poets, should be doing more. And I'm not one of them, so I can be excused. Should be doing more to bridge the gaps that the scholars, the journalists such as myself, the politicians, the so-called opinion makers, they have not been able to bridge the gap of South Asia. And the reason I suggest that it is very important to bridge the gaps in South Asia is for itself. South Asia is so many people. And when so many people do not feel that surge from creativity and excitement and connections of effervescent culture, then something is deeply wrong in the globe as a whole. So, I think I have one more slide to show. Do I? Yeah, this is the map. That's it. It's a matter of scale. It's hard to, when we say, oh, India is a country, Pakistan is a country, the scale of India cannot be subsumed within the word country. The scale of Pakistan, neither Bangladesh, can be subsumed within the word country. It's not as bad as nation state, but almost as bad because it doesn't speak to the people who live in their individual lives. So we need to take something from the Middle Kingdom. We need 1,000 flowers to bloom, but too few are blooming. And even those that do bloom are already wilting. And the plants are not going down to the roots and becoming long-lasting and sustainable. I'll end with some examples of how this separation of cultures and our inability to override that separation from the field of the arts and literature, what has that done to us? We cannot even grieve together. As Marvi said earlier, the floods, September 2022 floods of Pakistan, considered to be one of the worst floods of the modern era. The Pakistanis suffered, but they mostly suffered silently. For the image that has been created of Pakistan and this conflating of the Pakistani people and the Pakistani state does such injustice to the people of Pakistan, so that when they go through a massive flood, there is no empathy, not just around the world and not only in India, but because Indian media tells the world what to look at in South Asia, because world media is also concentrated in New Delhi and India's media itself is also very powerful. Even the South Asian neighbors failed to empathize with the people of Pakistan when they went through such excruciating crisis. Just before the COP conference happened, climate change, Salimul Haq, the pioneering scientist on climate change and loss and damage, he died and it was even his death, in a sense, from a journalistic perspective, is a newsworthy event, because he died just when what he was trying to fulfill, the loss and damage fund was about to be adopted in Dubai. He died. But was there news and was there empathy for his passing anywhere? This is the result of the separations created in South Asia. So that when, let us call it pre-partition, were there a scientist to die in Dhaka, the Delhi person would think and say, would empathize, would commiserate. The urbanization of the terrible nature of urban air quality in Delhi, some of that comes to Kathmandu as well. But that is not empathized enough elsewhere. Transitional justice, as a term that you may know, was exercised in Sri Lanka by the mothers, especially of the victims of the conflict. But slowly their voice was ground down. And nobody else talks about the transitional justice process, which has practically died in Sri Lanka. In Nepal, a small flame is still burning as TJ, but because of the lack of intellectual communication across South Asia, there are other parts of South Asia that need transitional justice badly, such as the Chittagong Hill Tracts, such as the Fata area of Pakistan, such as the issues of the Rohingyas. But does anybody use the term TJ? They do not. Why do they not? Because most of my audience here, Sri Lankans would know, but most Indians would not even know the term, Indian citizens would not know the term TJ, because we are not communicating because of the cultural barriers that we have not been able to break through. So I'll end with one, it's not even archaeological, it is paleontological, a pre-paleontological, prehistorical example to prove my point. So before the Himalaya, in the days of Gondwana land, when the so-called Indian plate, which today we might call it the South Asian plate, okay, was moving northward and hit the Tibetan plate. We're talking about plate tectonics. And the Himalaya arose. Before that, before there was the Indus River and the Ganges River system, there used to be a freshwater dolphin in these waters, in what is known as the Tethys Sea. Then the Himalaya broke through and the rivers separated. The freshwater dolphin lived on in the Indus Delta and the Ganga Delta. One in the Indus today known as the Bhulan, and one in the Ganges Delta, Ganges system known as the Susu. or sons. Over 2 million years and more, these two species survived in isolation, and today there is only a small anatomical difference between the two, over 2 million years and more. Whereas in all of 75 years, the cultures that the people of present-day India and Pakistan and much of the rest of South Asia shared, in all of 75 years, the cultural paths have diverged. And the two countries and two societies have got divorced. As a result, there is a load on the soul of South Asia. The cultural creativity does not come forth because nationalism is all. And what we do in the world of arts, literature, is not enough to fight that. So if you brought the two dolphin species together, subspecies together, they might even say hi to each other. But we do not know what the Indian nationalists, Pakistani, and all of our other nationalities, nationalists may do. Thank you.
शिव शिव रुद्रेश्वराय शिव कर स्वर प्रिय लिंगेश्वराय भूतनाद शिव नर्तन प्रियाय सकल लोक सर्व साक्षी स्वरूप திங்கள் சூடிய நாதனே கங்கை நாடிய வேதனே அங்கை கூடிய பாகனே ஈசா போதிலவன் பிரம்மனே காக்கும் போதிலவன் விஷ்ணுவே நீக்கும் போதிலவன் ருத்ரனே ஈசா அகிலமே ஆடும் வண்ணம் சபைகளில் ஆடும் பாதம் சுடலையில் ஆடல் செய்தது ஏனோ அமுதமே வேண்டும் என்று கடலையே கடைந்த போதில் அதில் வரும் நஞ்சையே ஏனோ சதுர்வேதம் பாடவே கவியாவும் போற்றவே எமை காக்க வந்த நீ புவியாவும் காப்பாய் நீ ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர சிவ 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 சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர சிவ 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 சங்கர வேதகீதங்கள் யாவும் ஈசனை போற்றுதே எழிற்கோலங்கள் காட்டியாடும் நாதனை பாடுதே ஆரூரன் தந்த பாடல் அடியாரை போற்றுதே அதில் காணும் நாயன்மாரின் பக்தியை பாடுதே நம்மந்த தேவாரம் கேட்டு சாம்பல் பெண்ணானதே அப்பர்தம் தாண்டகம் கேட்டு நாகம் உயிர் தந்ததே அடநாடென்ன காடென்ன குலமென்ன பிரிவென்ன எல்லோரும் அடியார்களே திங்கள் சூடிய நாதனே கங்கை நாடிய வேதனே மங்கை கூடிய பாகனே ஈசா காலனை மிதித்த பாதம் வீதியில் சென்றதே காலமும் கடந்த தெய்வம் தூதனாய் நின்றதே அடியவர் உணவுக்காக புதிசோறு சுமந்ததே அனைவரும் போற்றும் வண்ணம் வந்ததாலே புகழ் மேவினார் நந்தன் தந்தேகத்தை தந்தே சிவமாகினார் 63 அருள் பெற்ற நாயன்மார் புகழ் பாடி போற்றிடுவோம் திங்கள் சூடிய நாதனே கங்கை நாடிய வேதனே அங்கை கூடிய பாகனே ஈசா ஆக்கும் போதிலவன் பிரம்மனே காக்கும் போதிலவன் விஷ்ணுவே நீக்கும் போதிலவன் ருத்ரனே ஈசா ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர ஜெய ஜெய சங்கர ஹர ஹர சங்கர சிவ 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 சங்கர
தாண்டவம் சுடலை சம்பலத்தை உடலில் பூசிக்கொண்டு கைலைநாதன் வரும் தாண்டவம் ஜனனம் தாண்டி வந்து மரணம் வேண்டி வந்து இறைவன் ஆடி வரும் தாண்டவம் இரவு நடுங்கிவிட பகலும் ஒடுங்கிவிட சுழன்று சுழன்று வரும் தாண்டவம் இறுகி இறுகி ஒரு இரும்பை போல மனம் திருகி தேடி வரும் தாண்டவம் ஊழி காத்தடிக்க ஆழி கூத்தடிக்க அகிலம் நடுங்கிவிடும் தாண்டவம் பாவம் செய்தவனை கோபம் கொண்டு ஒரு சாபம் தீர்க்க வரும் தாண்டவம் தர்மம் காக்கும் நடனம் இது நியாயம் வெல்லும் தருணம் ரத்தம் பருகும் நடனம்